What is the gnarliest crime scene you have ever cleaned? So without a doubt, this is the most popular question I've ever been asked on this channel. And I sort of vaguely answered it in the past, but I never gave super clear, distinct answers because I wasn't sure how the algorithms on TikTok and Instagram would handle it, and I didn't really want to get banned or censored from it. But I found out here on YouTube there's actual crime scene cleaning companies posting entire death cleanup processes on their channels with all the gory details for it to match. And if YouTube is allowing content like that on the platform, I can at least tell my story and the worst thing I've ever seen while cleaning up a crime scene. So for me, I've done a lot of suicide cleanups, and those are pretty hard on me emotionally, right? The one that physically drained me and absolutely left me in shock was the one I like to refer to as the man who melted through the floor. Now, the story behind this unfortunate cleanup was that this poor man bent down to go pick up a package, and he had a heart attack and died right there on the spot. Usually not a big deal if the body gets found in a few days, but this situation was a little different. The body wasn't actually discovered until 6 weeks after the man passed away. Essentially, the body was discovered because a gardener working on the house next door got a bad whiff of something absolutely horrendous, and so he called the cops, and the cops broke down the door, only to stumble across a man that had been decomposing for over a month. Also, important fact about this situation, the man that was recently deceased happened to weigh over 400 pounds, and so that just made the whole situation a lot worse. So we get the call from the estranged family who essentially don't want anything to do with the situation, and the only request was that we keep his personal belongings. Now, normally that's not a big deal, but in this case, it was a problem because now the entire house smells like decomposition and all those belongings were just destroyed. But we had to keep him, and so that was just a tricky thing to work around. Plus, he had some pretty bad hoarding tendencies, and so it just made the whole process a lot more difficult than it needed to be. Bodies left decomposing for that amount of time leak an absurd amount of fluids and fecal matter. And since this was a pretty large individual we were cleaning up after, let's just say there were a lot of fluids that we had to clean up. So, fun fact, when we pulled into the street where the job was, we could immediately begin smelling the odor from inside the truck. That's how bad the odor was. Now, since there were so many fluids, obviously we had to take out the carpet and the carpet pad underneath it. And even after we got all that out, which soaked up a lot of the fluids, we still saw a bunch of it pulled up on the subfloor underneath it. So what we literally had to do was cut out the subfloor, revealing the internal structure of the house with all of its supporting beams. And the sad part was that a lot of the supporting beams themselves had fluid stuck on them, and it had also traveled into the crawl space underneath it, soaking into the insulation underneath the house. And so what we had to do was slice open the vapor barrier, which was holding in the insulation. And when we did that, all these fluids had just fell onto the ground underneath us. It was terrible. So now we're just crammed into a tiny little crawl space with a bunch of fluids that are seeping into the dirt underneath us. So we just had to go and grab a shovel and start shoveling out the dirt because it was all contaminated. So in total, we had 5 layers in which the fluids had traveled through. Those 5 layers were carpet, carpet pad, subfloor, insulation, and then the dirt underneath the house. It was seriously one of the worst cleanups I've ever done in my entire life. So yeah, being a crime scene cleaner is all fun and games until you get a job like this, which really pushes your limits to the test. But hey, at least you have interesting stories to tell at parties, so that's a benefit. So thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure to put in the comments what kind of story you want to hear me share next, and subscribe so you don't miss that video.